moves. Week 3, Panthers took some action, turned into Andy Dalton. We're a 7-point dog, now just a 5-point dog against the Raiders. The Dolphins have a new starting QB, Skylar Thompson replacing Tua Tagovailoa. And how about this? Miami moving from a 6.5-point dog in Seattle, now down to just a 4-point dog. That one. Scratching my head. Eagles were favored over the Saints when Lions were first posted Sunday night. Then Philly has that crazy loss to Atlanta on Monday, and it's now New Orleans that's a 2.5-point home favorite. So we've seen the fave flip there. Erin, you told us on Monday to be on the lookout for this, didn't you?
Yes, I was, because I said if the Eagles are going to lose, it was obviously going to flip. Now 5 points, I didn't think it was going to move that much, but the Eagles are disastrous. They should have never lost that game, but this is obviously a huge move. And the Saints, they looked great through the first 2 weeks. I mean, they put up 47 points on the Panthers, but obviously that wasn't a great defense. So, okay, that's just, week 1. Let's not overreact. And they put up 44 points against Dallas's defense. So the Saints are looking good. Derek Carr, he's balling out. So, to be honest, I don't trust the Eagles in any shape, way, or form. But at the same time, if this gets to like Eagles +3, I'd consider grabbing them at that. But it'll be interesting to see if it moves at all, if there's any buyback in terms of Philly.
All right. We're going to learn a lot about what the market thinks of the Saints if that gets to 3.
Yeah.
I'm very interested. This is one of the best ones to watch this week, because there could be a scenario that plays out where you wake up Monday and you go, I cannot believe we did not hammer the Saints at less than 3 at home against the team on a short week that had just blown a game against the Falcons. It's setting up where it could be a very good Saints bet. I'm wondering if we're going to see that.
Candidly, minus more injury, I would be kind of surprised if it did get to a full 3, even at home, but stranger things have happened, I suppose. The one that I want to ask you about, Joe, because it's the one that has me scratching my head most. I talked about it. Skylar Thompson starting for the Dolphins, moving 2.5 points in Miami's direction.
So think of it like this. 6.5 is where it was.
Right.
6.5 is where the Seahawks game was in week 1 against Denver, right?
Yep.
And that was basically a push. So what you're seeing is people that are looking at Miami saying, all right, it's definitely a downgrade to Skylar Thompson, but he's got 10 days to get ready for this game because they're coming off the Thursday nighter. And essentially, where is he in comparison to Bo Nix? Like, Bo Nix has been terrible. He's a rookie. It's early. I'm not saying his career will be terrible, but he's been terrible. Can Skylar Thompson play any better than that? Maybe. He also has better weapons at his disposal than Denver does, or that Knicks does with Denver.
Right.
So that's probably why you saw some of that move there. Relative to what Denver had, it should have been bet down.
Yeah, that one has me thinking. I wonder if I'm missing something with Skylar Thompson, but you're right. I mean, Tyreek, Devon Achane, he can just hand the ball off to them and they can go 80 yards.
I think now, the Kenneth Walker injury is something to monitor, but I think now when you see it at 4, that's when you have the opportunity to say, Seattle, this is a good play here.
And we'll say this about Seattle. They weren't all that impressive in their week 1 win. New England took them to overtime, and maybe New England's better than we are giving them credit so far. But even though they're 2-0, it hasn't been like they've been the Saints crushing teams. Anita, slide on in here and tell us what game with a move on the side has your attention.
The Raiders, yes please. It's gone from 7 to 5 because, oh, wait a minute, the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, is getting the start. We haven't seen that dude since 2022. Are you kidding me? As a starter in the NFL. And I know we're all looking at Bryce Young. It's all Bryce Young's fault. No, you've got to give, some weight here in regards to the head coach not getting Bryce Young ready. On top of that, this Vegas defense, they're only allowing 17 points a game. Their defensive line is going to manhandle Carolina's offensive line. This is a Vegas team. They're 8-2-1 against the spread with Antonio Pierce as their head coach. And oh, by the way, is anyone taking a look at Brock Bowers and how amazing he's been playing? 17 targets, and Carolina is the worst defense against opposing tight ends. I think he has a field day. So if you got him on your fantasy team, kudos to you. Yeah, I like this Raiders line right now. It's dropped to 5. Let it keep on falling. I'm all over it.
That's ugly.
What, Joe?
That's a rat.
Joe?
That just looks like that's the rat trap of the week right there. That's what it feels. I'm not saying not to bet it. I'm just that game. The Raiders have a huge East Coast win, and now they're coming back across the country off that win. There's some historical stuff that works against them there. That's a very interesting one. The Survivor people should be on the lookout there.
Anita, if you're scared, say you're scared. Didn't think so.
She's not scared.
I didn't think so. Not at all. All right, some injury updates for week 3 that we do need to tell you about. Green Bay quarterback Jordan Love practicing today. Adam Schefter said there's a chance he plays this week against the Titans. but the market has not yet reacted to that. So do with that what you will. One line that did move due to an injury is 49ers Rams. Niners are now down under 7 points to a 6.5-point favorite after tight end George Kittle missed practice today. Debo and CMC already out for the Niners, and the Rams, well, they're a complete mash unit, complete mess. Back here on ESPN Bet Live, taking a look at the 9 teams that have started the season 0-2 this season. That list includes the Ravens and the Bengals, both of whom are still favored to make the playoffs. Since the playoff expansion to 14 teams back in 2020, only 2 teams have started 0-2 and made the postseason, though one occurrence did happen last year with the Houston Texans, if you remember. All right, Erin, Joe, let's play a little Bet It or Forget It. Back here on the desk, Erin, speaking of those 0-2 teams, I mentioned the Bengals still favored to make the playoffs. Minus 140 is the price you pay. Bet it or forget it.
I would bet this. Out of all the teams that were on that list, I would have to go with the Bengals, and that comes down to their schedule within the next couple of weeks. So in the next 4 weeks, they're going to play the Commanders. They're going to play the Panthers. They're also going to play the Giants. Now in the mix there, they are going to have to play the Baltimore Ravens. But I was between the Bengals and Ravens to really answer this question. But the Ravens, I feel like they have a tough schedule coming up. They got to play the Cowboys, and they're going to have to play the Bills and also the Bengals. So things could really derail for them in the next couple of weeks. So I do think the Bengals, knowing that they've done this before, we saw this in 2022. So I do think that they'll be able to make the playoffs. And if you feel comfortable laying minus 140 on the future, of course you could take that.
Bengals on Monday night are either going to annihilate Washington or lose that game outright and all going to fall apart.
There's no in between
there.
Too many extremes.
No.
Joe, just as easily a team could start 2-0 and miss the playoffs. You know, that's possible.
Yeah.
Seattle's a team out there that is now 2-0 to start this season. Even money to make the playoffs out of the NFC West. Bet it or forget it.
I'm betting them to make it, to be very clear. Yeah, there are some teams that might be 2-0 that'll miss. A lot of interesting ones in the NFC. Minnesota's one. Tampa Bay would be the one that I'd say they're probably going to miss. Wait one more week till they beat Denver and then go against them. But look at the Seattle team and then ask yourself, where are they deficient? Where are they weak? On defense, they're an above-average unit. Their quarterback play from Geno Smith is above average. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a Pro Bowler, but it's above-average quarterback play. In terms of running the football, they're an above-average rushing team. Mike McDonald, as a head coach through 2 games, has shown to be an above-average coach. They're prepared. They found a way to win in overtime last week against New England. Lesser teams lose those games in those spots, and if you look at the schedule over the next few weeks, winnable against Miami, then you're going to Detroit, then you're coming back to play the Giants. 4-1's on the table, and this price is going to be gone. This is a good team. Rams are banged up. They're out.
So are the Niners.
And the Niners are banged up, too, and that's a spot where don't be surprised if this team makes a little bit of a run at the division.
Yeah, no,
our McCaffrey unders are looking good. Our futures bets on that. I hate to say that, but
he needs to get on the field first. You're absolutely right about the NFC West. Also, I think you're short selling Geno a bit. I know some people who think he's playing at an MVP caliber level right now.
Who are those people besides you?
say,
But the thing is, I'm trying to be conservative against that, right?
That's
like,
fair.
I want the rock
That's
bottom
fair.
version
That's
to
fair.
make sure I still feel good. If that's the upside, I'd be in great shape with this bet then, so thank you.
All right, Aaron, let's go to another 2-0 team, the Steelers, who, you know, they're winning games, but it certainly is not pretty. They're plus money to make the playoffs, despite this 2-0 start. Bet it or forget it.
forget it. I would bet no on this one. Does that like break your heart a little bit? Just because
It does.
you're always talking about the Steelers.
I know, because I think he just sits there realizing you'll all eat your words at the end.
That's how I was-
like,
No.
he's calm with it.
Steelers have won 2 games, but they beat the
point, Joe.
Falcons. They beat the Broncos. Like, they're still not that good of a team. The defense is really that good. I'll give it
Yes.
to them in terms of the defense, 100%. But that offense is averaging 10.5 points per game for the first 2 weeks. Defense does win championships, but my goodness, you got to put up points. You need points to win games, Tyler, as we talked about earlier in the show. So I am going to fade the Steelers. I don't think that they make the postseason. I think they just looked okay the first 2 games. They're 2-0, but the rest of the way is not going to be that easy.
They're 800-0 in one-score games over their last 800 one-score games. They do not
That's
lose
so
one-score games, and it goes back years, and it is infuriating.
Some would say that it's not a flaw. It's a
pro. Yeah,
you know, I mean,
Not a
like,
con,
there's
it's pro.
bugs
Very
and there's
impressive.
bugs in programs, and for the Steelers, it's not a bug. It's actually something that benefits them. All right, Joe.
Impressive.
Contractually obligated to talk about the Cowboys here. Plus 150 to miss the playoffs. Bet it or forget it on missing.
I bet that one. I think you take a look at the upcoming schedule. You have this spot against the Ravens this week. If they lose that game, 150 is going to be gone, so you want to get ahead of that. They have the Giants the following weekend. That's a win. We'll put that out there. And then take a look at what's coming up after that. The Steelers, the Lions, the Niners, the Falcons, the Eagles, and the Texans. This is a sloppy team. We saw it in week 2. Once again, totally outcoached, no answers when things are going wrong. The defense has to play from a lead. If they don't play from a lead, they can't get after you. They can't pin their ears back. They can't stop the run. They're a mess. And offensively, hit or miss. We'll see them look really good some weeks against Cleveland. They'll get high on their own supply, as some people would say. And then they're going to turn around after that. They're going to completely flop the following week. It's classic Cowboys football. Eagles are going to win the division. It's not going to look pretty. And then they're going to miss a wild card spot because while the Rams are down, Seattle's up, Arizona's kind of up, Tampa's up, New Orleans is up. Green Bay's not going to fall off like we thought because Love's coming back earlier. So
I'm with you. I would take that, especially at that price, plus 150 on the miss. All right,
Let's hope it happens.
As a Eagles fan, shocker. Everyone hates the Cowboys. If you're not a Cowboys fan, you hate
That's
the Cowboys.
just not
So I'm
true.
with
It's a
you.
very good
Well, if
team.
you either love them or
I
hate them,
don't.
that's why. I hate them like you,
I hate
even though I'm
them.
not an NFC East fan, so I want to see them miss as well.
I'd like to clarify something. Supply of wins. High on the supply of wins.
Oh, I see.
I figured that's implied.
I see.
I just figured I'd
'cause
clarify.
I thought I
Little
thought you were joking.
footnote.
Tyler, Aaron, Joe, ESPN Bet Live. Guys, a down year for QBs to begin the season. 40 of 64 starting quarterbacks have gone under their passing yardage prop so far this year. Brock Purdy leads the NFL with just 550 passing yards through 2 weeks. It's the first time no player has had at least 600 yards through 2 weeks since 2003. Overall, teams averaging less than 194 yards per game through the air, the lowest mark we've seen through 2 weeks since 1996. To make up for that, though, teams are averaging the most rushing yards we've seen through the first 2 games of the season since 1983. Throwing back to the heyday there, all right? You too, we're welcome in on our Thursday like we do. Dan Orlovsky to dive into this. Dan,
Has this been a talking point today?
I haven't heard anyone else talk about it. I think we're kind of blazing a trail here. How you feel today, bud?
I feel absolutely spectacular.
You look great.
Never better. Thank you.
What we like about this angle is that while you guys have done a fantastic job breaking it down all day, now let's spin it to the gambling perspective because we want to know what's going on and then we want to figure out how to profit from it. So let's start with that. What's going on? Because we're not throwing for 2 touchdowns per game.
Yeah.
We're not throwing for 300 yards per game anymore. Statistical production is way down.
Yeah, so the reality is that NFL defenses figured out that, one, the rules were skewed to a passing game. You can't put hands on receivers downfield more than 5 yards. You can't really hit guys crossing the middle of the field. Quarterbacks are way more dynamic athletically, and so are the wide receivers. So teams are sitting there going, we have these unbelievable athletes playing on the perimeter, and we have these rules that really promote the passing game. What's the best thing that we can do to try to minimize that? That's getting shell defenses. And these aren't new, but they're playing them more exotically. They're playing with more different personnels than ever. Teams are playing with 5 defensive backs on the field to, again, minimize the promotion of the pass game. That's why they're doing it. And the reality is, offenses still think that it's 2019 in many ways and that they can still just chuck it up and down the field. And defenses are going, well, if you're going to continue to do that, we think our defensive line will be better than your offensive line because they are in the NFL. And we think that at some point you'll not get the yards after the catch necessary, or you'll get a penalty, back you up, and then it's advantage defense.
Well, you mentioned why, but do you expect this to continue throughout the season?
I do. I've expected this for the past 2 years or so. I remember sitting on NFL Live in 2022 and doing a whole segment about the running game was going to come back into the NFL, the way that you watch teams play. Now, I do think it'll get a little bit better because some of this is rust. Some of this is, teams not playing, and specifically quarterbacks, a ton in the preseason. But I believe it's here to stay. We don't see precision in the pass game right now, and this is also very much so tied to, I would imagine and guarantee, red zone performance is about as low as it's been in 20 years. The red zone, 2 ways to score touchdowns. You either can run the ball very well, teams can't, or you have precision in your pass game, timing and accuracy-wise. There's not a lot of teams who base their offensive pass game upon that. So, yes, I think it continues to be the case.
Okay, so the natural payoff then, teams are running for more yards per game through the first 2 weeks of this season than we've seen in any year since 1983.
Yes.
So are teams going to be running the ball more? Should we look for more running back production on the ground game?
Yes, and specifically if they come from a Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak tree. I think, one, because their foundation is the commitment to running the football. 2, that their scheme has been relevant and basically undefeated for 50 or 60 years in the NFL. Now, that's also teams and schemes that I think the passing game will be higher than others because of the play action element. But I think those running backs for those schemes specifically will continue to produce this season.
Last question. If we can't hit the long ball down the field, are we going to see a lot more dinking and dunk, meaning translation play overs on completions, whereas a quarterback might have 6 completions on a drive to get down the field?
Yes.
Maybe it's now 8 or 9.
Yeah, so there was when I went into the NFL, there was an old school saying of completions plus rush attempts equaled wins. And if you were a team that got 50 of them, you were going to win a ton of games. And that went out the window once the explosive pass plays came into the NFL, let's call it 8 years ago. And certainly this is the Patrick Mahomes' fault, I jokingly say. So yeah, I do think that the completions for teams will continue to be something that they press offensively.
And you mentioned Mahomes, obviously the Kansas City Chiefs, 2-0, easily could have been 0-2. Travis Kelce struggling, 4 catches through 39 yards. I mean, through just 2 games. What have you seen out of the tight end that you think could get better?
I really believe this is partly load management. I do believe that this is kind of the formula that they followed last year. They've got a rookie left tackle that they had to actually sit down last week, and so I think Travis has been a part of making sure some protection elements were added into there. Patrick's gotten a little aggressive with some throws that he's tried to get to him. I think he had 2 catches last week that were called back, big ones because of penalty as well. So you've seen the emergence of Rashee Rice. You've seen the addition of Xavier Worthy that they've been focused on getting the football to. And again, they're one of the teams that has started this defensive trend in playing shells. And so that's where Pacheco or their run game has been a little bit more prominent. I'm not overly concerned with the lack of production from Travis.
All right, well, let me move from a struggling veteran to a struggling rookie and kind of ask you the same. What's going on with Caleb Williams? Number 1 overall pick, hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet, and he has looked kind of lost at times. Why is that?
I think his greatest flaw, which is trying to make a ton of big plays and holding on to the football, has been exacerbated by some of their play calls and also poor tackle play. Both of their tackles in Chicago have not played well, Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, and that's surprising, specifically with Darnell. I'd also say this. I see a lot of double moves on this offense, meaning they ask their receivers, DJ Moore or Rome Odunze, to run like a 10 or 12-yard route, stutter their feet, try to sell that they're stopping, and then going deep. Those take long periods of time to get operated. Their offensive line isn't built right now to do that, so I think they've got to generate some more kind of efficient pass game. I think Caleb's going to be okay. I really do. They got to protect him better to try and give himself or him a better chance. I think they also need to get way more efficient with some of the routes that they're calling.